Hi guys, welcome back to From PSD to HTML5. My name is Dan Wellman, and in this lesson we're going to look at the scourge of every front-end developer, HTML email. So I've been into web development for a while now, and thankfully even I got into it after table-based design fell out of vogue. But as a front-end developer, I've often been reminded of how bad things used to be by having to build HTML emails. And this is probably something that every front-ender has to deal with at some point in their career. So it's worth looking at how we can make the process as painless as possible. So the PSD that we've worked with so far is for a homepage, but it could just as easily be used for an email template as well. So we can start out in the same way as we did in the last lesson by adding a series of guides that divide the page up into sections. So we'll reopen the home template again. And if we just clear the existing guides, and we'll zoom in a bit. So let's take a look at what we've got. So if we were going to divide this up into an email, we would probably have a guide, here, and then we'd have one probably, here. Let's just zoom in so that we know exactly where we're adding these guides. Obviously that just wants to sit right above that line there. So, oh yeah, actually one thing we want to do before it doesn't make a difference that we've added some guides already, that's fine, but before we actually start slicing, we'll just crop the PSD down to the right size. Obviously it's quite wide at the moment. So with the crop tool selected, it automatically adds the crop border around the edge of the page. So we'll just bring that in right to the edge. And we'll do the same on the left hand side here as well. So, okay, so it's 944. We want to get this down to 940 really. Great. Okay, so yeah, I think the text kind of overhangs. Let's just make sure these icons at the top. Yeah, okay, so that looks good. So we'll crop that out there, and then yeah, let's carry on adding our guides. So we need to think about this as if we were building a table. Essentially that's what we're doing. Yeah, that's fine. So we want to add this guide here, roughly where this nav starts. So this is the most time-consuming bit right here, and it's kind of a pain in the backside having to deal with this, but doing this is actually going to save us pain that we would otherwise have to do in an HTML editor. So it's probably easier for us to have to just worry about slicing up a PSD than it is to worry about building a table. So you'll see why that's the case in just a moment, but obviously we need to be as precise as possible with these guides, and it can be time consuming. There's a couple of different things we can do actually. So if we go into the view menu here, we can just turn snapping on, and we can set the snap to so that it snaps to layers. So they're all kind of selected at the moment, that's fine. So we'll select snap, and now we should find that we can, I think you have to have the layer selected. Let's just make sure these icons are selected, and then we'll see if this kind of, yeah, that just snaps to the edges. So the reason why it's not snapping right tight to the edge is because each of these actually has a real fine white kind of fade outline. So yeah, these guides are snapping to the right things, so that's fine. So that just makes it a bit easier. We don't have to be quite as precise. Great. Okay. So we've got kind of a double guide going on there. That's fine. So it's still kind of time consuming, but at least now we can afford to be a bit less precise, and we can speed things up slightly. The only downside obviously to the snapping is that for the snapping to work, we need to have the layer that we want to snap to selected. That's not too bad. So this would probably all just be regular text anyway, and these big nice chunky borders, in an HTML email, this would just be a background color or a spacer GIF maybe, we might have to use. So it's the images really, that's the most time consuming. So let's just select the portfolio area, and now we should be able to snap again. Yeah, that's nice and quick. So it's quite similar to the process that we followed before. We're just using much more guides this time, because this time we have to divide up the entire PSD, whereas before we were just slicing out images that we were interested in. Now we have to literally slice out everything that we need, which is, you know, practically the entire PSD. So we're not actually slicing anything out at this point. We're just, you know, we're just kind of aligning all of these guides, and you'll see why in just a moment. So just there's a couple more to add. Shouldn't take us too long. You know, so this is where, you know, snapping to this layer would probably help us. Let's just drop in the bottom one. Yeah, much better, much easier. So just a couple more guides now to add. So the footer nav is a bit smaller than the header nav, so we just need a couple more guides down here. And let's zoom right in so we can see exactly what we're doing, and just make any minor adjustments that we need to. Great. Okay. Perfect. Okay, I think that's pretty much it now. So let's just have a quick look through and make sure that everything that needs to have a guide does have a guide. It's looking good so far. Don't think we've forgotten anything. Looks good. Looks good. Great. Just make sure these are, yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, so we've divided up the entire PSD now into, you know, a lot of guides, very tabular, and we'll select the slice tool again, and we'll do the slices from guides button again. Now we need to do what we did before and just make sure that this, for example, doesn't need to be, you know, 20 different table cells. It could just be one. So we'll grab the slice select tool, and remember we have to hold down the shift key to select multiple things. So we'll just go through, and if we select all of the ones in here, we'll just kind of zoom in so we make sure we've got all of them selected. Okay, that's looking good. There's probably one or two we've missed, but okay. So if we right click again, we'll combine the slices, and as you can see, I've missed a couple, so let's just select those as well. That one, because that's so thin, that's why that one's hard to select. So gotcha. Right. One is selected as well. Let's combine those again. I think that's all of it now. Yep. Okay, so that's the hero, and there's a lot of areas in here as well. So we just need to go through and select all of these as well. So this is probably the most time-consuming part of this process, but it's still going to save us time, because we would still have to cut all these things out ourselves if we were actually building the table from scratch anyway. So it doesn't make a huge difference. It doesn't considerably lengthen the process at all. It just does slightly. So remember to keep thinking about this as if it were a table. So we're really working, you know, in rows and columns now. You know, so this is where it's time consuming, just being precise and selecting the correct layers and slices, sorry. Good. Okay, so let's keep this row as one row. Probably select that as well. Okay, so don't worry, I'm not going to make you sit there and watch me combine all of those slices. I've done a few now, so you know roughly what we're doing. So I'm actually I'm gonna open one that I've already previously prepared. So okay, so here is what we'll end up with. So this is all of the slices that need to be combined. This gives us a very, very tabular kind of layout built of rows and columns. So once we've got to that stage and we've isolated all of the different slices, we can then go into Save for Web, and everything on this page is fine. You know, we'll set that to PNG again. And then let's just create a new folder. We'll just create one called email. We're going to save it in here. So this time we can change the images only format. If we select HTML and images, then that will change to something.html. So we can just set this to email.html. And there's a couple of other things down here as well. See, we've got settings and slices. So in the settings one, there's a whole bunch of kind of predefined settings. Now I've set one up called email. So that's a custom one that I've created myself. So you won't have that option there in your version of Photoshop. So if you want to create one, you can set that to other. And that will open up the output settings dialog here, and we'll keep that set to custom. And then we've got a couple of different kind of pages of this dialog. So the first one is HTML. That's fine. We want to output XHTML1. You know, we can include some comments in there. Photoshop will automatically add some comments. We don't need to worry too much about that. But if we go into the slices panel, that's probably where the best selection of things that we're interested in for this particular thing that we're doing, creating an email. All of the settings that we're most likely to be interested in are probably in this slices page here. So in this page, then we want to ensure that generate table is selected. I think it is the default selection, so the chances are it will be. In the empty cells drop down, we want to change that to GIF, IMG, W, and H. And what that does is when that generates a table, it will use spacer GIFs for any empty cells, and it will create an image with a defined width and height. So for an HTML email, that's exactly what we want. And we can also set the TD, W, and H drop down to always if it isn't, because really in an HTML email, TD cells always want to have a width and a height because it will stop things, well, it will help to stop things, the layout from screwing up in different clients. So once we've been through and we've made all of the changes that we want, see there's a couple of other things as well which we can set in these settings here. You know, once we've done all that, what we want to do is to save, and you know, I've already saved one out called email. So you choose the name and the file name and save it there, and then you know that would then be available for you to select in the background image. So I'm going to select email because I've already been through and changed all the settings previously and made them how I want them to be. So once we've selected the settings and the format, we can then hit save. And again, Photoshop kind of thinks about it for a little while. And if we go into the folder now, you can see there's an email folder and there's an email HTML page. And if we go into images, it's created all of the various images that we'll need. And if we just take a look at the HTML page, yeah, you know, there's still a lot of stuff that we'd have to do, you know, to turn this into an actual email. But that's not bad. You know, that's a very good start. That's a running start to create a HTML email. All we need to do now really is to go through and, you know, add the text in the relevant sections. And we can see that Photoshop has generated all of this HTML for us, and all of our images have got widths and heights, and you know, there's spacer GIFs for us automatically. You know, this will save us a lot of time, despite the fact that we've had to go through the PSD and add all of these guides and make the slices right. You know, that's still going to save us a huge amount of time. So there's more we can do as well. So if we look in the images here, we can see that the names that have been added to these images are a bit kind of generic. They're a bit rubbish, really. If we come back to this in 6 months or a year's time, you know, it's going to be very hard to, you know, look at the markup and know what all of the images actually refer to. So there's a couple of things we can do to kind of mitigate things like that. So back in Photoshop now, if we double click on one of the slices, it will give us the slice options dialog. And then, so we just clicked on the hero one there, I'll double click that. So if we change the slice name to hero, then when we save that out, instead of having a rubbish generic name like email 17, that would then be called hero. So that's much better. Again, we might want to go through and kind of manually rename all of these things. But if we do that, if we change the layer properties, then we don't have to worry about doing that, because Photoshop will use the correct names for our slices when it generates those images. So in this part, we looked at how we can use Photoshop's HTML capabilities as the basis for an HTML email. While we wouldn't dream of using Photoshop's table output in a proper web page, it's perfect for HTML emails. And we also looked at how we can create custom settings, our save as settings, so that we can reuse those every time we want to output HTML specifically for an email. In the next lesson, we'll go through and just look at another couple of different types of slice. Thanks for watching.